Hello, my friends. Welcome to this week's Make and Take. So this week I wanted to make an adorable tiny little campsite. I really love the miniature crafts. They bring me so much stinking joy. So we're going to start out with our chipboard base. So this is just a piece of chipboard. And of course, whenever I do crafts on the Make and Take crafts and I have people come in, it's so funny how people want to do things in a certain order, but there's a reason why I do things in a certain order. Is because I have made the mistakes and then I have learned what works well and what doesn't work well. So for the campsite, everyone always wants to put the moss down first. Actually, that's wrong. You want to do the moss very last, and that way it'll cover up any little mistakes we might have made, or if things are like chaotic or weird, or we got glue all over the place, we can just cover that up with the moss, which is great. All right, so we have our little tent. It's so stinking cute. So we have our little piece of paper. You just fold that in half, so you have a little tent. So you figure out where you want to put that down, and then you're going to put 2 lines of hot glue. Yes, we're using hot glue because I'm always using hot glue. Down right there, and then we're just going to set our camp or a little tent or a little campsite tent right on top of that. So then that way the tent stays in place. I know you're able to see through the tent, but that's okay. I'm sure the fairies will be just fine with what they have. Also in your little kit, you're going to see these 2 pieces of green. This is going to be our tree. So there's a fold line in the center of each of these, and you can fold that, right, so you can see. What we're going to do is we're going to use a pair of scissors, and we're going to cut up that line halfway, only halfway, all right? So you're going to end up with something that kind of looks like this, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side of the other green, only halfway, okay? Then you're going to take the 2 slicey pieces and put them towards each other and slide them in, and they're going to slide down each other pieces, so then that way you end up with something that looks like this, okay? All right, now what you're going to do is you're going to cut with a pair of scissors little sides of your tree, because we're going to make a 3-dimensional tree. So if it's easy for you to cut both pieces of paper, they're cardstock at the same time with a pair of scissors, great. If it's not easy for you, you can just do one, I'm going to call these little leaves, but we're going to do like one section at a time if it's not easy for you to cut all at once, okay? I want to make sure you're successful, so as we're going, if you're not feeling successful, take a step back and just do one little section at a time rather than 2 sections at a time, okay? So what we're going to do first is we're going to cut, we're not cutting all the way to the center, okay? We're going to cut from the bottom corner, we're going to cut diagonal, again, not all the way up, only partially, and then we're going to go straight. All right, so this little piece will come out. We're going to do diagonal and we're going to do straight. Okay, you see what's happening here? Diagonal, straight, whoops. And again, if it's not perfect, it's actually totally fine. It's actually better if it's not perfect. But we're doing diagonal straights all the way. And then, and again, you see how we're not going to the middle. We're only off to the side here. When we get to the top here, we're going to go all the way to the top point. All right, so this is what it's supposed to look like right now. And I did 2 layers at a time. Now I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to do the same thing again. And again, I really don't want it to look like the most perfect tree ever. I kind of want it to look like it's growing in an organic way. So again, I'm doing diagonal straights all the way up. Diagonal straight. And hopefully this is making sense for you guys, those of you watching. Diagonal straight. Whoops. Diagonal straight. Diagonal straight. And one more diagonal to the point. Okay? So move all my little bits over here. Maybe you can use those for something. I'm not going to, but maybe as you're looking at that, you're like, oh, this could be little bushes. That sounds great. Okay, so you're going to take this now that we've cut our tree, and we're going to kind of make it 3D like this. You can kind of pull that apart, so then that way you have your 3D tree. You see what I did there? Okay, so now that we've done that, we are going to take our hot glue, figure out where you want to put your tree. I'm going to put my tree over here on the right side. I'm going to actually draw an X with the glue, because X marks the spot. And then that way I can be able to put this in kind of an X shape on top of the hot glue there, okay? And that will be my little tree. Now, it's not going to be like the most perfect tree ever because we're making it out of paper, obviously. I'm going to do a tiny little dot of glue at the very top here just to make sure that my tree kind of stays pointy. Right? And if it's not perfect, that's great, because guess what? Trees are not perfect outside. Very rarely do you see a tree that looks exactly like this. I mean, who are we kidding? All right, so it's going to be kind of cartoony. That's what it's supposed to look like. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to make little logs. So in your kit, you're going to see this little strip of long, skinny rectangle. And we're going to, you can use a pen, you can use like a little skewer, you can pretty much use whatever you want. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're actually going to roll it up like so. All right, So then that way we kind of create like a little log looking thing. You can use white glue if you want. I'm going to use hot glue here on this little flap. I just put a tiny little bit of hot glue and then I just roll that, and then there we have log number 1. And I'm actually going to use my black pen, and I'm actually going to hold it like this, and I'm going to draw lines on it like so, and that's going to make it look kind of like a little log. It's amazing how easy it is to create wood grain, isn't it? Look at that. It's like a little log. It's perfect. All right, I'm going to do that again. Again, I'm just wrapping this around a skewer and kind of rolling it up like so. Pull that off of there, and then I have my little flap, a little bit of hot glue. Again, I'm using a very small amount of hot glue, but I use a lot of hot glue. So if you're not feeling comfortable with that, you can always use white glue. There's sometimes I recommend hot glue because it just dries a lot faster. You don't have to wait around for things to dry, but it's up to you. You want to use the glue that you're most successful with and also the most comfortable using. All right, so now we have more lines for our little wood grain. Okay, so we have 2 little logs. If you want to make more logs, obviously if you have other brown paper at home, you're welcome to do so, but that's what we're doing here. And I want to make sure you know that we're not using that slightly darker brown because we're going to be making our little campsite sign with this. We're going to come back to this in just a second. Okay, so now in your kit, you're going to see these little guys. We're not using nearly this much because this is going to be the fire. Obviously, there's a lot more fire than there are logs. So we're just going to be cutting a small amount. So I'm going to cut just like this really small little rectangles. You have extra that I mean, if you want there to be more fire, you can make more larger fire or more fire. I'm not going to. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zigzag one side of this. My zigzag is not going to be perfect, and honestly, that's great. I don't want it to be perfect because fire, again, is not usually perfect. All right, and then I'm gonna zigzag this guy as well. Again, I'm only zigzagging one side. Okay, so now we have our yellow and our orange little zigzags, right? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold those up. So the zigzag is all on one side, and I'm just gonna fold this so then that way you have the zigzag part all at the top and the flat part at the bottom, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. And I'm gonna do the same thing here, kind of doing a little fold up, so then all the zigzags are at the top and it's flat at the bottom, okay? So that's what we want. Again, I know it doesn't look perfect, but it's not supposed to look perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna figure out where you wanna put your fire. And one thing that we're gonna be adding in here is a little bit of water. So that's what the cellophane here is about. We're gonna come back and we're gonna glue this down in just a moment. I would kind of think about where you wanna put like your little water. I've had people come in to do this craft where someone did like a little stream across the campsite. I had someone did like a little lake on one side and then they did a stream on the other side. You could have like a much larger stream. You could have a pond right in the middle. It's totally up to you, you guys. That's like the funnest part about these kits is that you can kind of just create this whole little scene that you love. So I'm gonna put my water right here on this part of my campsite. So I'm putting hot glue down, and you gotta be really careful because the hot glue is hot, and we're going to be pressing down our cellophane here to make it look, you know, iridescent and magical, but for the water part, okay? Now we can always trim off any excess. Also, it's so cute. Sometimes I have people come in to make these crafts and they want the water to look like rapids or they want to make it look dimensional. And so they layer it up really tall. Oh my gosh, you can make a cute little waterfall if you have like some little rocks from outside. Like there's so many ways to take this to the next level. So anything that's hanging off of the edge, I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and just trim that off because I don't want that hanging off of the edge, you know, because then it looks awkward because we have our little seam and it kind of stops on the sides, right? Okay, so now that we have our little lake, we want to have our little campfire, kind of not too close to our tent, obviously, but we want it to be kind of close. So I'm going to put a little line of glue, and then I'm going to stick my little log, and then I'm going to have my little fire that I'm sticking right on the side of the log into that hot glue, and then I'm going to put another line of hot glue right in front of the flames, and then I'm going to have my little log kind of sandwiched there to lock the fire between the two logs, okay? So this is what we end up with right now. Isn't that so cute? Oh my gosh, I love the little fire. I love it, it's so adorable. Okay, so now that we have that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make our little camp sign. So, I gotta grab, oh, here we are. I'm also going to use some pliers to break our little stick. You guys, I've already broken your little stick if you have a little kit, but I'm going to show you how I do this. So this is just a little skewer. So what I'm doing is I'm figuring out how tall I want my campsite sign to be, and I'm just going to take that, I'm going to use my pliers and just snap it like this, right? So now you have the size of the little skewer that you want. And then, of course, I want to make a little campsite sign. I would personally recommend making the little sign size first and then writing on there what you want it to say. So I think I want my little sign to probably be over here on the side where the tree is. Sorry, I'll show this. I want the sign over here. So I want the arrow of the sign to point towards the campsite, right? So I'm gonna do that. So make my little arrow. So it looks like that, pretty cute. Oh, I'll make the other side of the sign also cute. Why not? Why not? Adorable. And then I'm gonna make a little sign that says campsite. Campsite. I have a bunch of like little dots and stuff just to make it look a little bit more, you know, like old or kind of fun. Okay, then I'm gonna take my hot glue. I'm gonna do a tiny little dollop of hot glue down here. While I'm gonna let that sit there for just a second, I'm gonna put also a little line of hot glue on the back side of my campsite sign. The reason I'm doing this is because I want the hot glue to dry just a little bit before I put the part of the skewer down into it. If we do it while it's still like super fresh, the sign will just fall over. So if we wait a second and then press it in there, it's much more likely to stay. See? I mean, it's still a little floppy, so you still have to hold it in place for a minute. Wow, my campsite sign is like massive compared to my little tent. That is hilarious. Okay, all right, now that that's staying in place, it's time for the moss. All right, so I have all of this little green moss I'm using. I recommend kind of breaking up your moss a little bit so that we can apply it as much as we possibly can. If you can see through your moss, it doesn't really matter because when you see through it, it's gonna be brown, which is the ground, so that makes sense. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put hot glue kind of around the water part, so then that way, of course, we have moss like growing right up to the edge of the little lake. So we have this on the sides here, so I'm just kind of pressing that down. Wonderful. Very, very, very cute. Oh my gosh, it's so adorable. And then of course I want some moss kind of growing on the sides of the tent, like over here a little bit. And then I want some kind of on this side. I'm hoping I have enough moss. I believe I should have plenty of moss here. And then I got a little spot right here for just a small little piece. And then I have some over here for around the tree and around the sign of the campsite. And you can see why it's important that we do the moss last, because again, we're kind of covering up any areas where maybe there was like extra glue or there were strings from the glue, or maybe we made a mistake somewhere. And so it's nice to have the extra moss to kind of cover up any of those little areas. I have way too much glue that kind of spilled out from around the little campfire. All right, and then I have a little spot over here. Yes, so cute. And look at that, this perfect amount of moss. Ah, yes, look how adorable this is. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. We have our little campsite, we have our little fire, we have our little lake, we have our tree, and we have our little sign. Oh my gosh, it is so cute. All right, my friends, so there we have our make and take. Isn't that adorable? I love it so much. It makes me so happy. I hope you guys had fun. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.